Dum dun 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 Interesting.
What?
Interesting.
What?
Alrighty then. It looks like YouTube, why are you artistic again?
It always is.
I know, right? It's just like it just baffles me. Honestly, it just
Without
baffles me.
fail, you're doing it wrong. It doesn't matter what you do, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, obviously. I'm not quite sure what I'm doing wrong, but I'm doing it wrong. Because then like Twitch is getting it just fine, but YouTube, no, YouTube can't be properly operating. That would be silly.
Indeed.
Okay, well, Washington D.C. is my best MS, so it's I don't know what to say. Be our guest, be our guest. It's just, I honestly do not know what the hell's going on with YouTube. Like, I'm outputting scaled down, right? So, I'm confused. I have maybe the bit rate's too high? No, that wouldn't be a problem. Yeah, no, the bit rate's not just fine. I just... I don't know. Maybe Google's throttling me. Who knows?
You're trying to be successful. We don't approve of that.
Anyway, Twitch is going just fine, so I suppose we should initiate.
Let's get this on, like Donkey Kong.
Let's not. It's not. No. Anyway. Welcome, one and all, to Fanfiction Friday, as hosted by SneakyDevil and joined by Atin, where we look at fanfictions of random denomination and more or less just make fun of them. I mean, sometimes we offer constructive criticism. Most of the time, we're just going on rants. So if you're here, it's probably for the rants and not for the constructive criticism, because you could go to many places for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they could go to many places for constructive criticism on terrible fan fiction, but I
Oh
think
well,
they
I
get
mean,
the
yeah.
idea.
Or if it's terrible fan fiction, of course, yeah, no, you're not gonna get much
Indeed.
constructive criticism on that angle. But I mean, there's space battles, sufficient velocity, quest,
Indeed.
fanfiction.net's forums, uh, writing.com, Springhole. I mean, it's not like constructive criticism websites don't exist or something.
Hmm.
It's just, yeah, anyway. So, our first story of the day will be the Legend of Zelda Ruby crossover.
This is gonna be special.
It's gonna be special levels of dumb.
Oh my god. I look at the prize pool tracker. We're already up to 4 million, Sneaky.
Yep,
We're almost at 5.
yep.
You people spend too much money. Huh. This doesn't seem right. I could use my mod powers to ban you from your chat. That seems like an oversight.
Yeah, it's a bit weird.
Anyway, let's get this on, shall we? Oh, look at this, a nice fat author's note.
Which I mean, aren't always indicative of bad. I just just finished.
Oh no,
One.
I'm just saying it's always interesting. Like,
Yeah. Because
because
One Punch Gamer, fantastic fic. Just finished that
oh,
one.
indeed,
Its author's notes were fucking massive though.
yeah.
He had a massive top author's note and a massive bottom author's note. Anyway, let's start. Twin Heroes of Remnant. Hello everyone, and welcome to my second story I'm publishing on this site. Now, you're probably wondering, what's going on with the Rangers of Ulysses?
No, we don't.
Not really.
Nor do we care.
I kind
I'm
of lost the
sorry.
drive for it a bit, so I'm setting it aside for a little while, and starting up with another story. This time, it's a crossover between Legend of Zelda and Ruby. I've had a lot of new story ideas, and I mean a lot. Around 10 Ruby crossovers. A crossover between Fire Emblem Awakening and Dragon Ball, and I finally finalized the idea for my Kamen Rider times Fire Emblem Fates crossover. Well, it's going to be two characters from our world who end up in Remnant. One of them joins
Whoa,
Team
you just
Ruby.
skipped a bunch, but
What?
you
No.
skipped a bunch. Now
Oh.
that one's going to be really big, spanning 3 different stories. Anyway, I digress. The specifics of the story you may want.
Specifics of this story, yes. It's going to be two characters from our world who end up in Remnant. Then what the fuck's Zelda doing here?
Yeah.
Who end up in Remnant. One of them joins Ruby, the other joins Juniper. We always espouse how we hate this. We hate this. They're teams of 4 because they're teams of 4. It's a military thing. I understand that most people don't get that, but it's a military thing,
Well, and again, not just a military thing. Even if you don't know that, it is how it is done.
Yeah, that's true.
In every single, in Ruby, you don't hear anything about teams of 3 or teams of 5 or teams of 6. No, it's teams of 4. Even people like Crow, one of the most badass guys in the show, was on a team of 4.
Yeah. Now, I could understand if you rolled it as they are an auxiliary, more or less, If it was, they get tacked onto this team to either train with them, to train them, or to provide some sort of support and or service that the team cannot do.
But even
But they
then, if
wouldn't
they're
be.
being
But here's the thing: they wouldn't be deploying with the team.
yeah,
They wouldn't be going on missions with the team. They wouldn't be doing the team-based things that the team is made for. They would be there as a support, as an auxiliary.
yeah, I was gonna say, you go look at the root of the word auxiliary.
Yeah.
It comes from Rome and Rome's military. When they specifically used, they would attach auxiliary units to the legions to make up for deficiencies in that legion. That's why you had archer auxiliaries, you had cavalry auxiliaries, you had auxiliaries composed of irregulars from surrounding provinces.
Yeah. So, that I could understand. But obviously, it's never going to be done like that.
Yeah, and this is something else that's different that I'm okay with. If I'm not necessarily a fan of it, but if you take your OC and you put them on Team Ruby and you remove someone from that team, or you put them on Juniper and you remove someone from that team, that's fine because you're keeping the 4-squad structure intact.
Yeah.
Now it's a little unless you write a really good OC, I'm not going to be a fan of you breaking up a canon team so that you can put your extra special OC in there.
Well, I mean, it's not only that. The problem with removing someone from play, being like, oh, Blake tried to get away and she died on the train.
Or even just putting them on a different team.
Yeah, or even that. But that's the problem though. Is Ruby got invited because they needed one more person. That was the reasoning that Osmond gave.
Well, that and he's like that and Silver Eyes and
well,
that
yeah,
she was
obviously.
Exceptional.
But it was just an easier excuse to be like, oh, well, we just need one more person, and she's pretty fucking savanty.
Yeah.
So, adding one more person to the pool of students would get rid of Ruby. So, which means you'd have to kill off one of the main characters before they ever arrived at Beacon or applied to it. Yeah. And the easiest
well, no, I mean, there's the alternate option to just throw out a side character. That option exists.
Well, I mean, yes, and then you would have to draw one of the main characters onto a different team that would have to be composed of completely, basically original characters, because how much characterization does Team Cardinal actually get beyond Cardin?
No, I agree with you on that. But
so it actually would make the situation worse.
Yeah, but again, this is all beside the point of.
But anyway, back to my original point is say you kill off Blake because she's the easiest to kill off because she's in the most dangerous situations before she gets there.
Right.
So Blake dies. Okay. New guy comes in. He's part of the team now. Sure. One little problem. They never train and fight White Fang. They never, fight Roman.
No, they might still fight White Fang, just not in the same way. Things like the incidents at the dock are certainly never.
Well, they would never have the dock problem. I mean, unless you're gonna make your OC basically Blake, but with your personality.
In which case, what's the point again?
Yeah. Or just, remove basically Blake, but basically the character you're replacing, but with your personality. You're not going to be at the docks, so you're probably not going to meet Sun. You're never going to catch the White Fang looting that shit, because there's no reason for you to be outside of Beacon. You're never going to find Roman recruiting the White Fang. You're never gonna destroy his paladins, or paladin that he was piloting, or whatever the fuck they're called. So they're gonna have those. Mountain Glen might still occur.
No, Mountain Glen would definitely still occur because that has nothing to do with Blake and everything to do with it being part of their plan. So Mountain Glen is still going to occur. It will play out differently, but it's still going to occur.
But see, that's where I'm getting the maybe from. Is, maybe Mountain Glen was assigned because Ozpin thought that's where Roman might
Yeah,
have run off to or something. Like, there's a high likelihood that because Ozpin pretty much knows everything.
yeah,
There's a high likelihood that he had suspicions that something was going on there due to the previous interactions that Team Ruby had, and the Team Ruby
yeah,
just
yeah,
happened to pick the mission that would end up, going there. But,
yeah.
um,
Well, and this is just a side note. This is just a different. It continues to be an objection to putting your self insert on one of the main teams, but it's like when someone puts their self insert on Team 7 in Naruto.
yeah,
It,
yeah.
it, sure, there's been times when it's been done great, but it's one of those things where it's just like,
If you're
it
not
sets
one
off
of
a,
those god tier authors, because, again, you gotta keep in mind, I'm not claiming to be, Atin's not claiming to be, Max sure as hell ain't.
none of us are claiming to be
None of
that.
us would ever sit down and do something like that because we know we don't have the writing capabilities to successfully write a story that would satisfy us.
Or other people for that matter.
And so, I mean, you gotta keep in mind your own abilities. It's all well and good for you to be like, yeah, I want to aim for the stars. Fucking fine. Yeah, great. Everyone does. But what you gotta do is you gotta be realistic. What can I accomplish?
Like, certainly aim for the stars, but at the same time, bear in
Because,
mind how close to the stars you're likely to get.
not even that. Like, you gotta keep in mind how much changes if you remove one of the main characters.
And if you aren't going to remove one of the main characters, why is your character being placed in the situation they're being placed in?
Why is your
Disrupting
character special snowflaking?
disrupting something that is in place throughout, that is a widely instituted, it's the same thing. Naruto, it's three-man teams with a Jonin
Yeah.
or or higher. Or
Like,
it's in
even more so, you can't break it in Naruto because that's an actual military structure going on.
yeah. And in Ruby, it's, if not actual military, it's certainly pseudo military.
Yeah.
And again, it's something that's well established. Like,
Yeah.
if you do that, then you need to give us a very good reason as to why you're sticking why your special OC is being in universe, breaking all the rules.
Yeah. And as I know we were going on a long rant about this, but the important thing is here is you got three things to remember when you're making a self-insert. Where are they gonna go? Why? And how does that change things? Those are the three biggest failings I see in a story. Because say you got a story that's like, okay, well, what if Naruto didn't kill Haku and successfully saved him/her? Okay,
Right.
you know exactly what you're gonna do there. You already know the answer to that question, and you're just writing it out for everyone else to see your answer. But if you're gonna go, what if my self-insert OC showed up and saved Haku, killed Zabuza, and saved the day, huzzah? Okay, well, why are they there? What
Why they're
powers do they
there?
have?
Why can
How
they
is this
save
changing?
Haku?
How does this change things? Like some random ass fucking ninja that no one's ever heard of shows up and suddenly kills one of the demons of the mist. You know, like.
And people might say, "Oh, but Naruto and Sasuke and all those guys were unknown," except they weren't.
Yeah,
You
no.
know, it, people who knew about Naruto knew who he was. They knew what he was.
Yeah.
And Sasuke was already making waves outside the village.
I mean, not only that, he was literally touted around as the last Uchiha.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, when it comes to self-inserts, you have to be very careful. Because if it's not a crack story, you actually have to pay very close attention to this is on my standards level. If you don't, you'll get plenty of favorites and follows and people jacking off to your story and saying how great and amazing it is because they're dumb and they have low standards. And that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, I mean, well, no, that's just something that we've seen continuously here. We've seen that people who have, I don't necessarily want to call them low, but people who certainly have different standards than us.
I mean,
And
I believe one of the main problems is for some reason on we would see I personally believe we would see far better quality fan fiction if two things happened. People raise their standards into what they find acceptable, and B, just didn't spam reviews of, oh my god, this story is so great, make more good, please.
yeah, especially when you see one thing that does infuriate me is when you just see reviews that are like one word, like they're just like great, keep it like. Okay, if you
No,
want
don't
to tell
get me
the
wrong.
author that
I do that as well because I have I
I
have
was about
nothing
to
to
say.
contribute.
I was gonna say
Like I'll read the
that's
whole story.
fine.
I'll be like, "Wow, this was great. You know, good job. Thanks for all the effort. Keep up the good work. Looking forward to where you're taking this story in future chapters." Because I have nothing to add, but I just want to put a positive comment in. However, there are
Right.
the people that in every single chapter are like, "Good, so good. Please more."
Right, but that's what I was about to say. I was going to
Yeah.
say, but on one chapter or two chapters, you leave a note for the author expressing that you enjoy what the author's doing and that you want to see where they take it. That's fine. That's great. Everybody likes positive reinforcement. Everybody. There's not a problem with that. But when you get the same people every chapter just going great or more or yay,
Yeah, yeah. And
that's not helpful for the author. Uh, you
and
know,
there's a
uh,
disproportionate amount of reward, I guess, being handed out. It's
yeah.
like you look at some of these shit stories that we've covered before, and we've exclaimed disbelief, 500 favorites, 1,000 follows at some of these stories that was just absolute garbage.
Poorly written or sometimes they were poorly
Poorly
written with
written,
bad grammar.
cliched plot, just horrible self-inserts, just everyone's out of character. Like it wasn't even a comedy or a parody story. It was taking itself seriously and it was doing everything poorly, but you just had a, a deluge of people pouring in
Like, what was that
claiming how
Naruto
great
one
it
where for
was.
some reason Naruto was in the Overwatch universe and he was a Talon assassin, but he literally had guns from Star Wars and that the author named as Star Wars guns.
Oh yeah, and they didn't actually operate like Star Wars guns, and they had infinite ammo because quantum mechanics, and but he still
And
had to
and
reload them. Uh,
and that one had like
that
it
that was
had a
in that
couple
was in that
hundred
was in the quadruple
favorites.
digits. That was quadruple digits. And
And
but then you look at stories, some stories that I've previously read, where it's like, oh, this author put in an ass load of time, and they were thorough, and they wrote the characters amazingly, and they maybe have a third of the favorites, follows, and reviews that story got.
yeah.
And it's just a disproportionate amount of and like I said before, I do see where that guy, the one author that we covered, who was whining and moaning about how his shit post story got so many more likes and favorites than his story that he put effort into.
Yeah.
And I do understand where he's coming from with that, because that is the thing. The stories that took like probably 8 minutes to shit onto the keyboard are getting massive amounts of favorites and follows and thumbs ups and shares and likes and whatever the fuck else you want to throw in there, upvotes. But the stories that all the effort gets put into, you got like 10 people who are like, yeah, this is solid, I fucking love this, let's all talk about it. It's like, sure, yeah, great, I got 10 people talking about it, but I got, 10,000 people over there fucking jacking off to it. To my other one, my shitpost one.
Yeah, and I do understand that. However, I disagreed with the author when when he canceled the story that was essentially a shitpost because he decided that his other work wasn't getting appreciated. Like,
yeah, no, like I said, I understood where he was coming from. His actions that followed, obviously, I don't support at all. And the context of the situation is obviously also ridiculous. Because his story that he was complaining that no one liked was fucking garbage. Even though it was long and he put a shit ton of effort into it, it didn't make it any less garbage. And that's the problem. Is there are stories out there that massive amounts of effort were put into that are still garbage. Because there is just certain settings and certain what ifs that just don't make good stories. There's certain crossovers that just don't make good crossovers. They don't make sense. Like Harry Potter, the Harry Potter Sal story we found. There is a very precise and narrow way to do that crossover without it being ridiculous.
Yeah. Or like, let's say you take...
which greatly limits the amount of stories that can be written for it.
Yeah, and there's stuff that will just never, like, I don't know, fuck it, let's take, I'm just looking around, fuck it, we'll take Star Wars and The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, like, again,
that's
doesn't
not
make sense.
No, you don't have a good reason for why that's gonna happen.
I mean, you could be like, oh, they discovered the planet. It's like, okay, that's all well and great, but the problem here is that Legend of Zelda is a single-person, character-driven story on a single world, specifically on a single part of a single continent. Meanwhile, Star Wars, while it does focus on singular characters in each of its books, stories, and etc., it makes sure to remind the reader this is just a little part of a bigger conspiracy plot, arc, etc., taking place, spanning the galaxy.
Yeah. And even when it focuses on one character, in fact, most of the times, the books don't even focus on one character. They'll focus on a couple of core characters, but they won't even they won't stick with one character. And even when it does focus on just one character, it is constantly reminding you and drawing little hints and reframing things to keep you in mind, to bear in mind that this is a galaxy spanning. Like, one of my favorite books is called I, Jedi, and it's about a Jedi Knight named Corran Horn, who was a member of Rogue Squadron. And his wife gets kidnapped, and he decides to and one of the things they've been dangling in the Rogue Squadron books for a very long time, and other books in which Corran made an appearance, was his Jedi potential. But he'd always said no, because he thought there was more important stuff for him to be doing than to be off, cloistered in essentially a monastery, learning how to wave hands like a monk. But so his wife gets kidnapped, and he realizes the only possible way he's going to find her is if he finally goes to Skywalker's Academy and learns to be a Jedi and use the Force. And the entire book is about him learning about his Jedi powers, becoming a Jedi, and going to find his wife.
Yep.
That's the entire book. But even throughout that process, in the process of finding that, it will reference other events that are happening, because this book was written quite a number of years after the other books of its time had been written, as far as the expanded universe goes. So it's constantly referencing other events. And even then, it's not as if Corran spends all his time on Yavin learning to use the... No, he gets around the galaxy.
Yeah.
And in the books where they're stuck on one planet, like the Truce at Bakura or the courtship of Princess Leia, where they're stuck on the planet Bakura and they're stuck on the planets of Dathomir, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
They're always there's they get there in a spaceship, or they talk about being there, or they talk about the ways they got there, or why they're there, or what they're looking to accomplish at that planet.
Yeah.
In the True Ship Bakura, they show up there because the planet of Bakura sends out a big ass distress signal saying, "Hey, some kind of freaky ass invaders are here, and they're causing us problems."
Yeah. Yeah.
Courtship of Princess Leia, there's a horrible darkness on the planet of Dathomir, and they go there. Also, Han shows up because he kidnaps Leia, blah, 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 stuff that's not important. But the
Yeah.
point remains that they spend all of their time reminding you, hey, there's a wider world out there. Other events are occurring.
And another great fan fiction example would be back when this was the only one of its kind, it might still be. Primed to Defend the Universe. It was a Mass Effect Metroid crossover.
Ooh,
In which
interesting.
Samus Aran decides she's gonna do a warp jump, and she does, and oh shit, she kind of overshot the galaxy, and now she's in the Mass
How you
Effect.
say that happens?
And she's now in the Mass Effect galaxy. And she's like, well, shit. Gotta repair my ship. But to do that, I need parts. But to get those parts, I need facilities to make those parts. And to get those facilities, I need money. So I need money. I'm good at getting money. How do I get... Okay, there's humans here. Oh, they're pretty thorough with backgrounds.
Instantly, if you can link that to me, because that sounds fascinating, and I want to read
Oh,
that.
yeah, no,
Even if
yeah,
it's
definitely.
dead, even if
It's
it's dead, I want
completed.
to read it. Oh, great.
He actually finished it. Yeah, no. Yeah, no, but yeah, it tells the tale of Samus Aran replacing Shepard.
That's
And
great.
it, it it starts at Mass Effect 1 and it goes on, and it was so good. But it worked because they were both similar settings, both had a similar focus of one character in a larger universe, and you can get a lot more characterization out of a written word for Samus than you could of a game, which allowed the author a lot of freedom in how exactly and when exactly they wanted Samus to be acting and how.
Yeah.
And
Well,
they
and
did a fantastic
additionally,
job of that.
an important thing about Samus is Samus is a very strange character because she's both an established character, but at the same time, very little is known about her.
Yeah. And
Like, important traits are known about her.
the author, we're all ignoring other M, the author did a
Yeah,
fantastic
that didn't.
job of
Yeah, that's because
capturing.
even Nintendo said no, that doesn't count.
Okay, good. Um, the author did a fantastic job of capturing the kind of mindset being a more or less immortal bounty hunter.
Well,
That,
not immortal, just
well, unaging
yeah,
bounty hunter that saved galaxies from universe-ending threats.
on a regular basis.
And yeah, so yeah, I'll send that to you.
Yeah, like
After
the
we're
Reapers
done.
rolling around, she'd just be like,
Oh,
another
it's
one of these.
he
It's
handled it
Tuesday.
fantastically. Like I said, he did the whole thing fantastically, but it worked because the settings were similar,
Yeah,
and there is some great sections out there that some sections by I mean, anime books etc. that make great crossover material.
right. Well,
Familiar
I
of
have to go
Zero,
now
huh? Oh, you
because
have
it's
to go.
time. I have to go. So,
All right,
yeah, but send that to me
all
through a
right.
PM because I'm gonna read that. So,
As I was saying, now that I'm all there is some great material out there that makes for great crossovers. Familiar of Zero, because literally the start of Familiar of Zero is them summoning from any space and any time. Uh, High school D times D is decent at doing the crossover as well, because there's more or less this multi-verse theory going on, and so, the Nasuverse, the Fate series, another great crossover section, because literally the multiverse is canon there, and anything can happen. I've seen some great Warhammer Nasuverse crossovers where the orcs get summoned, and fun times. Warhammer makes great crossing into material because of the warp. Same for Halo. Makes great crossing into because of slip space. Um, Skyrim is okay. Uh, you can fudge a bit for Skyrim, and Daedric Prince, blah blah blah, whatnot. Some material just makes for very, very poor crossovers, though. Harry Potter, for example, it there's not much there that would indicate this is we can bring new characters from other sections in, or we can export characters. There's not much there to. Readers are gonna have to suspend a lot more disbelief to do a crossover with Harry Potter. I mean, obviously, I've seen good ones, of course. There's always good ones. Um, but they set that up, and even though they were good, there was still a suspension of disbelief and date adjustment. And you kind of want to stay away from date adjustment as a general rule for just everything, because especially in this day and age, technology increases at a rapid pace. What we have now, we didn't even have an idea of 5 years ago. Uh, what we had 5 years ago was a fantasy to the people in the 90s. You know, what we had in the 90s would have blown the minds of people in the 40s. What we had in the 40s would have blown the minds of people in the 1800s. Um, and if you notice that what I said there is, and fudging the years a bit, say moving Harry Potter from the 80s to the 90s to, I don't know, 2000s, late 2000s, late 2020, would drastically change how the Harry Potter verse would play out. Um, Hell, even if you move Sao a year later, would drastically change how Sao turned out as technology was improved. Maybe it would turn out worse. Maybe it would turn out better. We wouldn't know, but what we do know is in that sort of day and age, technology would most certainly not act the exact same. And that's something you have to pay attention to in the more earthbound sections, I would say. Because Star Wars tech, it's really not going anywhere. Whether it's whether it's 500 years before Revan or 10,000 years after Revan, uh, the tech obviously we it does change, but blasters are still blasters. Personal shields are still personal shields. Ships are still ships. We're not going from fucking Apollo series to a goddamn the Infinity from Halo. Um, but Halo technologies, for example, any spacefaring genre, the years can be fudged a lot more because most of the technology, quote unquote, is already out. We can't even conceptualize what would change, so you have a lot more leeway. But when it comes to genres that are set in the past, fudging years is got to be done with very careful precision. Because, fucking hell, a couple of years off, everything could change. Opinions could change, culture could change. How armed someone is could change. You know, this is just something to keep in mind. But, since I am alone now, all alone on my lonesome, I'm gonna finish reading this chapter out. I'll commentate on it, offer suggestions and my ideas, and then I'll probably end the stream because I have waffled on long enough. So before we moved on, gotta say this. He says it's a Legend of Zelda Ruby crossover, but he specifies as well at the same time that it's going to be a self-insert OC from our Earth. Two of them, who are going to be brothers. Yeah. So how is he going to work Legend of Zelda into this? Well, you'll see in a second. And obviously, that means the names are going to change a little, but not by much. What will they become, you ask? Sorry, but you'll see that when it happens. The characters' weapons, you might ask? Nearly every weapon from Hyrule Warriors and Hyrule Legends. One of them will have the majority of the hero weapons, and the other will have the bad guy weapons. Now you're probably thinking I'm going to start this off right into the story. No, you're wrong. Get ready for a little trailer that focuses on the new member of Team Ruby. And no, the other guy isn't getting a trailer because then I'd feel obligated to create trailers for all of Team Juniper. And we all know how tough it would be to make John look cool before the story even started. This guy clearly doesn't like John. Although the trailer I'm gonna show you takes place shortly after the character's arrival on Remnant, the story proper will begin on Earth. Anyway, enjoy the short trailer for the twin heroes of Remnant. So this chapter is called the Green Trailer. If you are even remotely familiar with how Legend of Zelda operates, you will know that the Green Trailer is a direct reference to, you guessed it, Link. If you didn't guess Link, I apologize, because you should have. Um. Anyway, on with the show. Nature. Calm and serene nature. At least, that's how it usually is. But right now, but not right now. And rarely is it even that on this planet. It's a bit of an awkward sentence. Basically, what he's trying to say is that nature is calm and serene, but that it currently is not. And then on top of that, it is also rare for nature to be calm and serene on the planet of Remnant. I'm not really sure how you would bust that down to something less clunky as hell, but it is certainly something that would need to be done. Um, Mostly because